Good afternoon. Thank you for joining with me on this next installment of Growing Together with Christ. It's been a few days since we've been together. We've been very busy here at Lighthouse Baptist Church in Hope Mills over the course of the last few days due to our International Missions Conference we had here over the last few days, and I'll talk about that on our next video. But today I want to get caught up with our apostles, and today I want to talk to you about the Apostle Philip. And the title of this little devotional is From Pessimism to Optimism. From Pessimism to Optimism. And I'm going to be reading to you from John chapter 6 and verse 7, where the scripture says that Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. Now, Philip is now listed as the leader of the second group of the apostles. The first group was Peter, Andrew, James, and John, and now we're getting into a second group of apostles, and Philip now is listed as the leader of those 12. The name Philip is Greek. We do not know his Hebrew name, and he is not to be confused with Philip the deacon and evangelist from Acts chapter 6. He is from the city of Bethsaida, which is the same city of Andrew and Peter. He is probably by trade a fisherman as well, since he grew up and knew Andrew and Peter. He was a process type person. By nature, he was a pessimist. Now, what do we mean by the name or by the term of pessimist or pessimism? Pessimism is a belief or feeling that bad things will happen in the future. It is a feeling or belief that what you hope for will not happen. And let me give you a little brief description of a pessimistic person. We could call this person a corporate killjoy. We could call him, I call them a Johnny Rain Cloud, that whenever something good happens, that rain cloud always comes along and kind of rains down upon the goodness of what has just occurred. They're narrowly focused. They miss the big picture. The glass is always half empty instead of half glass full, and they often say it cannot be done. Now, let's look at his calling, and we see that in John chapter 1, 43 through 51, and for sake of time, we're not going to read that, but you can read it at a later time. He was the first of the 12 that was sought by Jesus. Christ gave the command to Philip, where he said, "Follow me." And Philip obeyed immediately. Philip had a heart that was seeking truth. He had a heart that wanted others to know the truth as well. So two very important questions that we must ask ourselves in regard to Philip. Number one, what are you seeking to find in regard to joy, happiness, and truth? Are you seeking to find those things, your happiness and joy in things, in possessions, in people, in materialism? Number two, are you seeking to spread the good news of the gospel so that others may also experience eternal joy and happiness? See, it was Philip in John chapter 1, 43 through 51 that brought the apostle Nathanael to Jesus Christ. Now let's look at his pessimism in the feeding of the 5,000. We just read that from John chapter 6. Philip was a man of faith. He believed in Jesus Christ, but he was a man that was very weak in his faith. Christ asked Philip a very important question, where he said in verse 5, "When shall we buy bread and that these may eat?" Christ knew the answer, but he was testing Philip for his faith. All Philip could see was impossibility, which we just read in our text. So what is the key point? The key point is Philip lost the reward of his faith by not believing in Jesus Christ. So there was a lack of boldness and initiative when Philip introduced the Greeks to Jesus in John chapter 12 and verses 20 through 22, where the Greeks came to Jesus or came to the apostles and said, "Sirs, we would see Jesus." And then verse 22, Philip cometh and telleth Andrew, and again Andrew and Philip tell Jesus. He was a man that had a tendency to be more concerned with details and protocol. He was people that are concerned with details often lack in boldness and vision. So here's the key point. While it is important to pay attention to details and protocol, we must also be people that look for ways to bring people to Jesus. And then lastly, there was the pessimism at the Last Supper, and we see that in John chapter 14, 1 through 11. Christ had been teaching, spending time with Philip now for 3 years, and for 3 years Philip still had not got it. He was still weak in his faith. In verse 11, Christ said, "Believe me," I'm reading from the Amplified, "believe me that I am in the Father and the Father in me. Or else believe me for the sake of the very works themselves. If you cannot trust me, at least let these works that I do in my Father's name convince you." There was here a persuasion for Philip to believe in him, Christ, as a person, as the Son of God himself. He needed to believe in his claim that his testimony and his witness to himself is absolutely true. So, knowing what you know about Philip, would you want him to be one of your followers? Now, here's my thought. No way. He's pessimistic. He's negative. He thinks negative always about everything. There is no way that he can become one of the most important people in the history of Christendom and the world. But what did Christ say? He said, he is exactly the kind of person that I am looking for. The ESV says this in 1 Corinthians 1, 27 through 29. "But God shows what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God shows what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God shows what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God." Are you like a Philip today? If you are, believe in Jesus and allow him to increase your faith. Allow him to take that pessimism and turn it into eternal joy and eternal faith in the finished work of Jesus Christ. Well, God bless you. Hope this is an encouragement to you, and we'll see you next time on Growing Together with Christ.